There's a picture attached to the agenda package. It's the former gun depot building, which is at the corner of,
Gun Depot, okay, I know who they are.
yes, of 7th and Ohio Avenue.
And could I ask another question, Mayor? I'm not sure if this, it does pertain. Did we ever, or did your group ever come up with a method to decide how much money we're going to give to the storefront assistance?
Yes, it's item number 5 on today's agenda. However, I received these two applications, items number 3 and 4, since our last meeting, so our current application is still active. So that's why I didn't want them to wait until we update our application form. Yes.
Are there any other questions from the board? There appear to be none. Is there a motion for action on this item?
Second.
Been a motion and a second for action regarding the storefront assistance program application. Could we put the motion in with the numerical figure in the motion? Can we do that? Okay.
I move that we award LBB company the 50% that they're asking for in reimbursement in the amount of $3,260.63.
Thank you. The second.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion from the board? Any from the public? Yes, go ahead.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Just up front, I'm here as a citizen, taxpayer, member of the CRA, who provides the money for this, okay? Commissioner Tinder's question was very good. The reference to minutes of the meeting of the CRA Advisory Committee was that the storefront program be reviewed because they looked at it and were caught with a complexity on a previous application. They did not get a response of what the review was and the update. So they did not have any choice in this. This falls within a normal concept anyway, but you're going to be later on, I don't know what the other ones are, but you're going to walk into this again. So if we don't have an adjusted storefront program, that should have been held back, period. I have no disrespect, but it is under the old rules. However, this falls within the rules. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm getting at here is when you go later on, if one of them comes up and it had been there before, the committee said, you got to revise that system. And they did not get any information back. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell? Yes. Commissioner Friend? Yes. Commissioner Barnes? Aye. Commissioner Tender?
Yes?
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so we have approved 50% application for the LDD Holdings office. And I just want to comment about what a lovely change they made in that building. It's great. It fits in with our neighborhood house. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding the storefront assistance program application for gun depot store at 716 Ohio Avenue.
This is the second application Mr. Baber submitted recently. He owns both of the buildings. They're adjacent to each other. However, there are two different businesses located in these buildings. So at 716 Ohio Avenue, I also attached some images. to the agenda packet is the location of the current gun depot. So they just moved one house down the street, basically. He made some minor modifications to the store frontage and is requesting the reimbursement of $1,750. I also attached a summary sheet that outlines the expenditures he had, including his total expenses of $3,500. So he's asking for 50% of reimbursement for the expenses he had.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Mr. Dunkley on the board? Okay, are there any questions from, sorry? Oh, was
I'm
it-
sorry,
No.
was there a question?
Any from the public? Okay, is there motions for acceptance of this facade for the second building, which is 716 Ohio Avenue, a separate business known as the Gun Depot?
Motion to approve as presented.
There's been a motion to approve as presented and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Mr. White, please call the roll.
Mr. Barnes? Aye. Mr. Tender?
Yes.
Mr. Russell? Yes. Mr. Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so the motion stands approved. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action regarding the update of the storefront assistance program application. Mr. Dunkley, did you have a report on that item?
Yes, ma'am. So at the last CRA board meeting, the board asked me to review the current storefront assistance application and also the process to see if it's still up to date and to recommend any changes. So I looked at the application form. There were some conflicting messages in the frequently asked questions section of the application form, which I updated. And so the updated application form and the project details sheet is attached to the agenda. I also looked at the incentive limits. There were some questions before that this whole program is maybe unpredictable in terms of the amount of money that the applicant can expect when he submits an application. I looked at the process really, and I think as long as we really stick to the procedure, it is pretty predictable. I mean, it says clearly that the CRA will reimburse up to 50% of the expenses, not to exceed $27,500. Now, in the past, the board recognized this, but then decided to go with a different amount, and I think that caused some confusion amongst the applicants. So I think as long as they can produce all the information that we ask them to provide, we should be in good shape. Now, when we looked at the application, for example, for Ace Hardware, I had a feeling that the amount was maybe not enough for this type of project, but then at the same time, we may be mixing two different things here. This is clearly for the storefront improvements and not for a new business coming to town, creating new jobs. So if the intent is to incentivize those companies, we may have to look at a different incentive, a job creation incentive. But just for the storefront, for improving the store frontage of an existing business, I think this application or this process should be just fine.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Mayor, if you would. I met with Ben, it's not a question. I met with Ben over this Saturday. My confusion, obviously, was the decisions that the board made. After reviewing the application and realizing the application pretty much says what we're supposed to be, and if you look at what we have, I mean, we've got 4 of those 6, we didn't follow the guidelines. Ultimately, this board is what has caused the confusion. Not the application, not the process. So it's the board. Going forward, I hope we follow our guidelines or fix our guidelines to where we will follow them. And obviously, put Ben in a position where they have to deal with it if they're not getting what they think they deserve.
I have a question, Mayor, if I can. Just asking Commissioner Russell, what did you find that we didn't do the last time? I mean, can you tell me?
Base hardware should have gotten 175 because we were wrong. The application said we entitled to 25,000 and 2,500 architects. It's a lot more than that. We didn't even give him the money.
But he came back and got more, didn't he? Yes.
The total amount was 20,000. We should have gotten 175. So, you know, and then if you look at them, look at the list. I mean, Ben can tell you exactly. I know I think there's one in there who said exactly what they're supposed to do, and the rest of them didn't. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 applications, we correctly applied the application to one of them.
But respectfully, my understanding is it was 50%, though. Am I misunderstanding something here?
Correct. But like Ace Hardware, we know you spent more than we didn't follow up with him the latest. And Ben can tell you what they've spent. I didn't write down when I met with him, but you know, I mean, every day. Do you remember the numbers off the top of your head?
No, but
Sorry to
he
put you
definitely spent more than $60,000 on the storefront, yes.
But again, if I could respectfully come back again, to assist property owners to enhance the street visible appearance of their property, and it goes on, you know, the many commercial properties were designed and built in styles that have become dated. And so I don't think so much that the board went against this, because I think as Ben said earlier, I believe the confusion was that this was a new building coming in. And part of my, I remember distinctly, part of my issue with it was, and I don't get me wrong, I am thrilled that Ace Hardware is here, and I think their building is beautiful, but they are part of a chain. It is a franchised business, and it's not so much, I don't think, the spirit of what we've thought about in the past of enhancing an older business or enhancing a building. So that, I think that true board possibly didn't go with the monetary part, but on the other hand, I don't think that business quite fit what the purpose says here either. So I think there was a diametric proposal there. So sure.
So throw Ace Hardware out. Look at the other ones. If I'm not mistaken, the Harry Jackson Masonic Lodge is for a roof. That's not a storefront. How do we apply that money? I mean, there's several discrepancies in what we should have done versus what we did.
Well, it doesn't necessarily say storefront, though. It says street visible appearance. And it really is. I mean, if the new roof we just put on City Hall.
Yeah, but Harry Jackson is flat.
Actually, you can still see the roof. I mean, I would just take it.
Well, even still, you know.
It's fine. I mean,
and I don't have a problem with us being arbitrary about the money we give them. If that's what we want to do, then I think the application needs to be fixed. Because if I fill this application out and I read what it says if I spend more than $60,000, I'm entitled to $27,500 back. And that's the way I read this application.
if your storefront fits the intent of the application, so I think that might be where we need.
Well, Mayor,
Sure,
if I may.
But the paperwork doesn't imply that if we decide to give them $5,000, then we've admitted that they fit the clause. So if we're going to give them any money, why don't we give them what the application says?
Okay.
Yeah, but Mayor, isn't it also in there, and I know the attorney wants to step in as well, but isn't it also that it's up to? I mean, it doesn't guarantee a set amount, it's an up to amount,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's
correct.
really what we're talking about, and I think that's why decisions have been made in the past, because it was an up to amount. It's just like when you're if you go to a sale, you could save up to 70%. But go ahead, Rob.
Mayor, if I may?
Sure, go ahead.
Again, the way I read that is, if I spend $15,000, I'm going to get $7,500.
Yep.
Up to the 25. If I spend $100,000, I'm still going to get the 25.
I can
Wording, you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I can certainly respect the way you can come to that conclusion, but I think as a board member, I can say that the the way it was presented to me, they were utilizing and falling within the guidelines to award up to a certain amount, and that's how they came to the conclusion.
But the sentence right before that says it's a 50/50 cash incentive up to the following amounts. So it's saying that it's going to match 50% up to this number.
So maybe perhaps if we take out the up to language, and just say half.
Well, and that's the note I made as well, is maybe we need the attorney to step in, and I'm not saying it's a legal issue, but I totally understand how we're coming to these different conclusions.
Mr. Jackson, go ahead.
I was just going to make a suggestion, and I guess it seems like the board is saying two different things. One is predictability for the business owners who want to go out and spend a large sum of money on something predictable. And the second is to preserve the commission's right, or the board's right to decide how much money that is going to be. And so I think that really the two options, one would be to remove the up to language, so it's pretty clear that if they follow the guidelines, it's like a vested right, and then they will get the amount that, 50% of whatever they spent, up to within those limits. The other option would be, and I don't know how viable this is, but you could have the business owners come before the board prior to making the construction and get basically a definitive amount, how much they look at their plans, and the board that could then make a decision and say, we're willing to fund this up to, $10,000 or $15,000. Then the owner can go and do his stuff, knowing that we may have to come back and get it finally approved, but at that point, it's already been approved by the commission. And that way, you handle the predictability for the owners and also kind of preserve the right of the commission. I don't know how the application process works, if that's something that's possible or not, but that's a suggestion.
So what are our thoughts on that suggestion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. If you don't mind, I'll
Please go ahead.
Starting this in. I struggled with this, reviewing this with the up to 50%, because quite honestly, I think the up to allows us to make a decision and gives us a little leadway as a board and also as staff reviews it. I think if we get rid of the up to, then we're really depending on looking at these applications, to make sure that the money's there, and scrutinizing the applications a little harder because we don't have that up to option. I kind of don't like them coming before the board prior to any kind of construction, because I would like to think that they're going to do that irregardless. So this just should be a relief effort. This should just be a help. And hey, we appreciate what you're doing for the city and investing, and we want to kind of help in that process, not that we want to be partners in what you're doing. That's kind of my thoughts. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Barnes, you have thoughts on?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Friend. I see the biggest obstacle that we have is the language, the up to language. I think if that language is removed, I think it will make it much more clear, and therefore the applicant will know exactly what they're using.
Okay. Commissioner Tender, thoughts?
I wanted to also say that I think when you bring in chain stores, like Ace, for example, and I agree, it's a beautiful store, but when chains, if we're going to do the same program with a chain store, anybody that comes in and makes a improvement to the storefront could qualify for this. I mean, like McDonald's or anybody. And I don't know that if we don't want to, change the verbiage to somehow, I don't know if you want to exclude them, but I'm just saying, when you come storefront, those people have the money to make those.
Commissioner
options.
Russell, you want to come back with?
Mayor, I don't think it's the up to number word that's bothering me. I think if you take out the 50/50, then they're not going to expect 50% of what they spend. And that way you can say, hey, the board will give you up to this amount, but it's a board decision.
Okay.
That way, how are we going to gauge that?
Well, how's the board gauged it until now?
Well, because I think we've given half in. It's pretty much kind of been that way.
My understanding is that's not correct, that we haven't been giving them half.
I would agree with Commissioner Russell that there has been inconsistency in the amounts awarded, but at the same time, I really would agree with points made by each member of the commission. I mean, each member has made some good points that there's definitely, I think we all kind of agree that there's some issues. Mr. Jackson?
additional thought would be, if you remove the 50%, I just want to make sure that someone could come in with a $30,000 project and expect $27,500. I think that was the purpose of the
Yeah.
50%, that no more than, it's a dollar for dollar match at the most.
Then put in there no more than a 50% match. You know, you need to do something, because right now, and this is again my opinion, reading this application, I would expect to get 50% of the cost of the construction up to the 27.5.
And I'm sorry, finish, Commissioner?
yes, ma'am.
Perhaps there would be a way that we could maybe just add a new sentence that says in the application that the commission has the final decision as to whether up to and the 50% are, in
Yeah.
other words, leave, as Commissioner Friend said, leave the commission some leeway. In other words, it's not cut and dried.
I think, Mayor, if I may, I think we actually already have that CR Board reserves the right in its sole discretion. So that's kind of our,
I missed that sentence.
that's right after the,
Page 2 on the
yeah,
bottom.
sorry, page 2 and.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the original
Okay.
intent was to preserve the commission's right for budgetary reasons or for whatever, that it wasn't a guarantee, and that they could spend the money and the board could turn them down. I mean, it was just a.
Well, and it could be, too, that we alleviate some of the confusion up front during the application process. I mean, I know no one understands this better than Ben, and maybe I know he clearly recognizes the fact that we've had confusion in the past, so maybe during the application process, we can better communicate that, hey, here it is, it's 50-50, dollar, up to, always keep in mind, the board has at their sole discretion. I don't know. The other
I
only
like
other-
that.
Yeah, the only other comment I would make is, have we, because I haven't had a chance to research this, but have we looked at other CRA boards and applications and policies and procedures through Florida Leagues or CRA? Just, I mean, because we're not the only CRA board. I'm sure we're not the only one offering this incentive. I'd just be curious what others might be doing, so.
I've seen this more through the process, and not to bring back what we had here as a Main Street organization, because it really wasn't functioning as a completely voluntary Main Street organization with 5 committees and all that, as the Florida Main Street is. But I have seen, when I was looking at all of that, that the Main Street organization is pretty much the one in the examples I've seen that funds the business incentives, either them or economic development councils. So I think we're, from what I've read, and I'm sure there are 467 cities, so I'm sure I haven't read them all, but in the ones that I've looked at, I think that we're fairly unique in what we're offering, and I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it's a very unique thing that they do here.
No. Mayor, if I may?
Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, Commissioner Tender?
I just had a question, because I was just reading this. It says here that we awarded Jim's Vacuum $3,700 in 2014. Now, what happens if Domino's walks in the same building, and because they've changed it to Domino's, what if they come back in? I mean, are we obligated to?
Because it's up to the commission, and that's my understanding. And I think if you look back, many commercial properties were designed and built in styles that have become dated and outmoded and suffer from numerous repairs. And even though they've come in and put the Domino's sign, and I mean, they haven't made significant changes to the building. It was already in pretty good shape when they moved in, is my thought. I'm not saying that's how I would, necessarily respond to an application from them, but that's kind of my thought.
They would have to substantially change the store frontage. They cannot apply for a reimbursement of their expenses they had for the sign. So signs don't qualify under the current program.
Okay,
So
further thoughts? Go ahead.
Let me ask this. So, using Commissioner Tender's example, do we have anything in writing that would preclude us from doing it?
That would preclude us from doing it?
From giving-
Awarding them?
Yes.
That's kind of what I was saying, that even though in my head right now I'm thinking that building doesn't look like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I wouldn't do it if they came in with something, maybe they tried to make the building more beautiful, something besides just the Domino's sign. I don't think there's anything here that says we can't. It's just we wouldn't have to. That's my thought.
I would think it would not be best practice. I mean,
5-year. someone's applied for this, it's 5 years.
But in the same light, if this business owner, if it weren't Domino's, for example, let's just say it was something else, if they came in and changed the look of that building by making it look a lot like our city hall and our branding for the city and made it look, like something that would really tie together and pull the, I would have to, in my mind, consider something like that.
Yeah, I personally would like to see more applications, not less. So because then we weed out the applications based on, whatever the budget is, if they meet the criteria, and then once they go through that process, underwriting is what I would call it, and then they come to us for final approval. I would like to see more applicants, so I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from making application. But anyway, that's just me.
Okay. Other thoughts from anyone on the commission?
Just found another, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Another line in that actual application. The third page is what I was reading about, where it says store assistance program.
Yes.
But in the actual application, it says the money is available on a dollar-to-dollar match. For every $1 the property owner puts into the storefront improvements, the CRA will put in $1, but cannot exceed 50% of the total cost of each portion of the project. That doesn't leave much room for interpretation. I mean, that's pretty much saying that the city's going to match them dollar for dollar.
Up to.
Up to.
And then you still
I can't
got
get
that other
past
Well,
one.
no,
the up
actually, in
to.
this paragraph, it doesn't
I
say
just-
up to.
I just can't get past. I can't get past. I guess it depends on what your definition of up to is.
Well, see, I look at it as up to cost of the project, not us up to what we decide to give.
Yeah,
That's the way
I like I
read it as
said,
the
I.
applicant, because the
yeah,
applicant's reading this as he's filling it out. And we need to look at it as the applicant is
Yeah.
filling it out and how he's going to read it.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you at all, and I can completely agree with how you're coming to that conclusion. I'm just, I guess as a board member, and I think you're taking a valid role in putting yourself in the applicant's place. As a board member, I read it as up to, we're going to award up to a certain amount. As an applicant, I can certainly respect how you're coming to that conclusion of it's going to be dollar up to that amount. I can see that, but I don't know other language to put in there, and maybe we need to let the lawyer marinate on it a little while. I don't know. Otherwise, that's, unfortunately, I call this, no disrespect to our attorney, but I do call these words lawyer words, because then they end up getting communicated in the system to determine what may means, or up to means.
And that's a gray area.
That's what I'm saying.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Maybe just to clarify some things, it's out of the 6 applications that we received since 2009, the only application we really had an issue with was Ace Hardware. And Ace Hardware was the only applicant that submitted an application through a third party. So where I didn't have, I'm not saying that this is the reason why there was maybe some miscommunication, but going back to your point that you mentioned earlier, I think it's essential to sit down with an applicant before they submit an application to kind of manage expectations and to show them here, this is the process, this is, if you want to apply for this, this is what we want to see, and here's an example of a previous application that was approved. And that way they know exactly what to look out for, and questions later on will be, or there won't be any questions during the process later on.
And Mayor, if I may, I just think that's best practice right there, because, and I don't think that we have a number of applicants that the workload can be handled and done with that type of hands-on, and so anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to continue the discussion or add something else to it before we move on? Okay. Are there any questions from the public regarding this? Okay. Mr. Walker.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan. There was a movie once, and the President of the United States asked a question, and the answer was given, and then the person said, that's not exactly true. You were just told that there was only one that you had trouble with. There was 2. The first one that started this, and that was Adams Pharmacy. They put 100 $400 and some odd thousand dollars into their project. Ace Hardware put over a couple of million. They didn't put in for a couple of million, they didn't put in for $400,000. In the case of Adams, a little bit of, let's say, politicking and good thinking, common sense came out of it. The board did not want to give Adams the full $27,000 as requested. They gave him a short fall of that amount, way short. And it did exactly what we ran against with the committee. It put this board and this city in a bad sight with the business corporation of this town. And that's what we had to address when Ace Hardware came up.
May I interrupt just one, were we talking about Adams or Mullins? You got me.
Adams. Correction, Mullins.
Okay,
I
I'm
stand
sorry.
corrected.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mullins. In the Mullins case, it was found out that somehow the city mischarged them the exact amount they asked for in improper impact fees. So everybody was satisfied with that one. In the Ace Hardware one, we were put in a corner. As a committee, we were put in a corner. We had to decide to save face, to help out, and to live to the honor of the agreement and in the application, the way it's worded. We recommended that the increase in the amount of money given to ACE. Didn't like it, but the comments that were made at the time was, this shows a bad face to the business people in this town, and it also, in relation to what Commissioner over there said, reduced the amount of applications that were received because the business people knew they couldn't get what they were promised. So you had an end result there that did not go too favorable with the committee. We, as a committee, decided and asked for a change of that program. We did not get it. And I understand from here, we didn't get it, it wasn't done.
Okay.
This could cause you trouble. As was said to the committee, I would strongly recommend that you take a good legal look at this and write it so it is in plain language that even the common denominator can understand it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public? Okay, we need a motion for acceptance or a motion in some other direction at this point.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we should look at the application the way Commissioner Russell pointed out. The verbiage has got to be clearly, it's got to be clear so that everybody can understand it.
So is your motion to table this or to give it some more time for the attorney, or?
If the attorney's rewriting it, well, whoever needs the time, but I think we should address it.
Is there a second to table this for a future meeting, or? Okay, there's a motion on the floor to table this for more discussion and for the attorney to look at it again.
Just for clarification, the board wants it to be more strict and clear, and basically less discretion to the board. If the businesses meet the criteria that it's allowed, that they should get the money that's budgeted for, as long as it's budgeted. Is that?
I don't know that the discretion part was, I don't know. Was that what you intended, that the board would not have the discretion? It would be kind of cut and dried? Just spit it out however you want it. Just
No, I think the board should have the discretion, but I also think there should be a formula that's good, not just for this one, but for everyone.
Mayor, if I may.
Okay, so there's been a motion, and there was, he had a second, so
Yeah.
we don't need a comment. We decide if the second is there. So is the second behind that motion, or?
My understanding the second is just to table it, right?
Well, we're sort of giving direction to the attorney at the same time, so that's what I'm asking.
I don't want to take discretion away from the board. I think the board should have the right to make the decision how much, but I think that the application needs to be very clear that they're not going to get a 50% reimbursement up to $27,500, that the final decision would be made from the board, and it could possibly be that much, but it needs to be very clear that they can't expect that they're going to get that. And
Okay.
I think, and from my dealings with the ACE people, they fully expected the $27,500.
Okay, so Commissioner Tender, would you, if you don't mind, just for the sake of clarity, would you withdraw your motion, and then Commissioner Russell, would you withdraw your second, and then I'd like to let Commissioner Friend make his comment, and then we'll go back and try again, okay? Thank you.
Okay, I withdraw my motion.
And I'll withdraw the second.
Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to, I just want to make sure, so I really wanted to just clarify the motion myself as well in the second, because to me we have two different things. We're going to ask, if we table it, we're going to ask the attorney to go back and address some of the language in this policy so that it's clearer to the applicant. But in my mind, it's pretty clear, but I understand the disconnect. And the discretion is definitely in there because it says that the board has that discretion. My thoughts were that it's a procedure situation, best practices situations where I was making that comment that during the application process that it's clearly communicated to the applicant that this is what this language means. There could have been, and I agree with Ben, whenever you have a third party involved, regardless, and I appreciate him saying that's not the reason or making excuses, but obviously there can always be a breakdown in communication. So recognizing that, maybe we do need the lawyer to come up with clearer language to the applicant as to what they can expect. So that's, thank you.
Commissioner Barnes, any final thoughts, and I'll give them an opportunity?
No.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Tender, would you like to try again with the motion, and then we'll see where we go? I think it's basically the same thing that you said before, and perhaps Mr. Jackson can assist you with making the motion.
I'm happy to make a motion too if you'd like. I'm happy to make the motion as well if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay, so Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we have the city attorney look over the language of the policy to make it clear to the applicant, and then also look at the procedures that the staff is taking in order to communicate the policy. And then it would come back at a later time, so basically tabling this particular item today.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second, and is there any further discussion?
Mayor, I'm sorry. Clear to the applicant that there's discretion with the board.
Well, not only the discretion, I think that's pretty clear, that it's pretty, but clear to the applicant as to what they can expect, because I think we're having a hard time with the up to and the $50 to $50 to dollar match, focusing on that particular language.
Got it.
So Mr. Jackson's clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any further discussion from the public? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes. Aye. Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so item number 5 will be tabled until the next meeting of the CRA as the attorney moves forward with some of the suggestions made by Commissioner Friend and Commissioner Tender. Item number 6 is the discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the Sheffield Park renovation Phase 2 change order. Mr. Jonke, would you like to present that for us?
I reached out to GAC and requested a quote for the Phase 2 project, or the Phase 2 of the Sheffield Park renovation that includes the construction of the interior sidewalks and some handicap parking. This quote is based on our master agreement that we have with GAC. This master agreement was signed a couple of months ago and is good for the entire project. GAC provided a quote in the amount of $71,791.80, and I'm requesting to add this amount to the existing contract. Since they're still not done with Phase 1, we might as well just go ahead and get this change order done so that they can do this all at once.
Okay, are there questions from the board? Is there a motion?
This amount was already set in the contract, it's just we're moving it forward. Is that what you're saying? This part of this project was already planned for and
Yes,
you're doing it ahead of time.
Number one, we have $80,000 in the budget for phase two, and the $71,000 was part of the overall quote they gave us a couple of months ago, yes.
Thank you. Is there a motion for acceptance?
Yes, Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the change order for Sheffield Park Phase 2.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Questions? Any questions or discussion from the public? There appears to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so item 6 stands approved. And then we are now at item 7, which is public commentary. This would involve anything about the CRA that anyone who is present would like to discuss or bring before the board. Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I did have 3 questions, but we took care of that with that
Okay.
little discussion over the form and the storefront. I do have 2 and a possible third. What is in the present CRA trust fund now, balance? Do we know? Do we know?
I don't have it in front of me, Mr. Walker. Does anyone else? Mr. Jonke, Mr. White? No one has it in front of them?
I don't have the report.
Okay. Mr. Walker, do you know? You have it in front of you?
No, I
Okay,
don't know,
okay,
except
okay.
what I read in the budget, which you're going to be discussing in the next meeting. All I know is this, that it's down, depleted, according to Mr. Russell and I know, that it's depleted down from what we were saving up for the last 10 years
Okay.
to get a good thing. I don't know, and I've asked this before, what is in the trust fund? I also asked, where is it?
Okay.
And I've never got an answer
If you will
yet.
give me a call tomorrow, I'll make it my business to know the amount in the trust fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question was, has Bay County Taxing Authority, which has taxing authority over the CRA, have they agreed to the formation and extension of our CRA?
Yes, go ahead.
Still currently working with Bay County on that agreement. They have sent an agreement to us, and Rob's got a copy of it. I've got a copy of it, so we're getting comments back to them.
Is that the board's answer?
Pardon me?
Is that the board's answer?
The board's answer?
Yeah, CRA board.
I don't know what the rest of the board's answer is. I know that
Well,
we don't have a final
I'm
answer.
listening to the city manager.
Okay, you asked me a
As
question,
far
now
as
you're
I know-
interrupting me.
As far as I know, no disrespect, the city manager is not a member of the board.
Okay, you asked a question.
I
and the
asked the
city
question to
manager
you.
asked me if he could answer the question, and I gave him permission to do so. That is my right to do
Okay,
as the
so that's the
chairman of
board's
the board.
answer. Thank you.
No, if you've interrupted me twice, Mr. Walker. The board does not answer as one. I'll give them an opportunity if they would like to. There has been no definitive answer from the county yet about our CRA, and I believe that Mr. White said that, and he said that the information is with the attorney. So that's a pretty definitive answer.
I understand.
Okay, did you have anything else?
There's no debate there, except that the people, the citizens of this town can only address you. And the board has equal opportunity to answer if that's their answer, and they're answering through you.
I understand the Roberts rules.
Thank you.
Anything
They-
else?
Your rules. That'll be, well, takes care of it. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you so much. Anyone else from the public have a comment or a question for the board? Okay, then sorry, did you have a question?
Not a question, just
Go
one
ahead.
comment. Been getting a lot of comments, and I want to thank Ben and this board for the playground across the street. If y'all don't know, any time of the day or night you go by there, it's being used, so that's money well spent by the CRA.
I would concur, and I would also add to that 2 years ago, with Mr. Jonke and also with several members of this board, and also with many members of the community, we had 3 very public, open workshops where everybody came and had a lot of input into the park, and I think the entire city's pleased with the park, so congratulations as well. Anyone else have anything you'd like to say? Okay. The meeting is now adjourned. We will begin a public workshop talking about our mobility within the city the mobility plan from last June. And if it looks a bit formal, but to save time and to make the meeting more expedient, we're not going to move down to the tables, but it will be a workshop. It will be much more informal than the commission meeting, and we'll be asking for opportunity for the public to speak as well if you'd like to.